People whose first relationship was very long-term. What weird thing did you believe was normal until you started seeing other people? Not me, but the girl I'm currently dating said that her first long-term boyfriend would stare at himself in the bathroom for an hour or so before going to bed each night. She made me believe the old TV tropes of women never wanting sex. I had to work my ass off to get her to give me some action. The next girl I had was just fucking amazed that I didn't just ask for it when I wanted it. The bewildered look on her face when she finally asked, "You realize I'm horny too, right?" Quote, I thought most guys liked having their nipples played with because my first ex did. My second boyfriend was so confused when I started licking his titty LMAO. That some girls in a relationship don't like to kiss as often as others. I'm just talking about pecs when IGF gets home, etc. I always enjoyed a hello kiss, but I guess some girls don't. My ex put her happiness on me, making it my responsibility. Would demand I stay around and cut my work hours back, and then be upset when we wouldn't have money to go out. Every time I would try and leave, I was coerced with sex to stay. Because I was young and stupid. After 8 years I had enough. I moved 5 states away. Had a chain of bad relationships that ended. Took some time to work on myself, and I am now engaged to an amazing woman I can communicate with, share feelings about issues, and who values a healthy relationship. Porn is not a documentary. Being used as a sex doll, contorted into uncomfortable positions, and pounded until you bleed, can't stand up, or just break down crying from the pain isn't normal. Nor is anal sex a necessity. We were both virgins and he had major porn brain. I thought I was bad at sex and would never be able to have a positive experience with intimacy. Until I finally left him and was with my second boyfriend. I'm okay now. But wow, was that a horrible person to lose my virginity to. Being cowed into an open arrangement equals normal. Him introducing me to friends while hanging out or going to parties, and then him telling me later in the evening after the ice had broken that they were actually the girl's he was fucking. Capitulating to his insistence that we continue to hang out even though I was uncomfortable with knowing this new information equals normal. Him making unwelcome and uncomfortable comments to other women I was friends with in front of me to attempt to orchestrate threesomes that I was not okay with equals normal. If you love me, you'll chase after me equals normal. If you love me, you'll leave FaceTime up at all times so I can see what's going on in your dorm equals normal. If you love me, you will not show any sad or mad emotion because it ruins my mood equals normal. It wasn't super long term. Only about a year, but when you're in high school that's fairly long term. This year my ex was a very clingy dude. Sweet, but would follow me around to every social gathering and get jealous of me spending time with my friends. When I started dating the guy who is now my husband, I remember looking around at a party early on of mostly my friends that he hadn't met before, and I couldn't find him. This year I asked someone where he was, and he was out by the fire with a group of people chatting and hanging out. I was astonished that we could just go our separate ways in a social setting, and that was totally fine. We didn't have to be attached at the hip the whole time. My ex basically taught me that it wasn't okay for me to be upset about things. Every time I would get my feelings hurt, even when I was upset about something completely unrelated to him, it was somehow flipped around, so I ended up reassuring and comforting him. This year that shit really messed me up, and I basically had to relearn how to be vulnerable with myself. He also had a very solid plan of how he expected me to live my life. Basically, his main goal for me was to have kids and be a good housewife. Yikes. On the bright side, nowadays I'm happily engaged and my fiancé treats me with so much love and respect. He's supportive of my dreams and we are able to lean on each other in times of hardship. Just a SFW remark. Her father hating me. I just thought this was normal. But in the subsequent 3 relationships, last one turning into a marriage and family, the parents were kind and I couldn't believe that is possible. Sorry, I don't have any NSFW things. All the girls were very open to experiments. I tried to change her. That was my emotional insecurity. My bad, Melissa. A lot of girls like to fuck. That every time was essentially a quickie. Almost a whole decade of nothing but 5 thrusts and then blast off. After that relationship ended, I felt like Jasmine on a magic carpet ride, a whole new world. This is a little strange, I guess. Sort of an individual thing. But, with my first 2 relationships, 5 years total between the 2, I never realized how cuddly I am. I used to hate being touched or kissed. And I never realized that wasn't just the way I was. I even thought I might be asexual. But deep down I knew that wasn't the case. My fiancé used to be the same way. But when we met, somehow things just clicked into place. Not every guy wants to throw on Motown and slow dance with you. Some of them don't even care to touch you. I miss the slow dances. Your partner should actually make an effort to spend time with you. You shouldn't have to surprise them to spend any time with them this year. That sex should last more than 45 seconds. I would lick the side of my first girlfriend's face like a dog and she loved it. My second girlfriend slapped me when I tried it. Edit. My first gold. Thanks. I was not expecting so many people would relate to that. He was extremely well endowed. We dated from middle school into college and I wasn't much for porn at the time, so while I knew it was large, that's what I just thought large penises looked like. Turns out something like that is so rare it's even hard to find in porn. Also, turns out sex wasn't supposed to be a ridiculous challenge either. Suicide threats, black eyes, self-harm, manipulation, social media and phone stalking rights. Remove female friends from social media plus life. Sex as a currency. Must respond to texts within 20 minutes or the result is one or more of the above. Finally got out of that one after 3 long years. Learned a whole lot. Helped to build my now very strong relationship though, so hey. Take the positive and leave the rest, am I right? Actually, thinking about the future was a big thing. Since we got together in high school, there always seemed to be this idea in the back of my head that this was going to end eventually. And because of that, I never really looked at anything like a future together. When we graduated, it was just too comfortable to break up, and even though things were fine enough to stay, it was a drag that never ended because I just never really thought of them as the person I wanted to be with forever. It's hard to say when exactly I stopped loving her, but it was a relationship of comfort and convenience more than anything. And when she eventually cheated on me and broke us up, it was still just easy to get back together on and off after that I could feel myself falling back into a commitment I didn't want to be part of. Now it's wild to actually think about a future with my partner. I genuinely look forward to stuff like maybe living together, or getting married and seeing the world, and all that romantic stuff. Before, everything was more or less convenience. But I had no idea how great it was to actually look forward to potential life events with someone else. Passive aggression, gaslighting, subtly guilting me for every choice I made that he disagreed with, treating me like his therapist and dumping his issues on me. We dated from ages 16 to 25. It took a bit of therapy to unfuck my brain, and to even learn that some of our interactions were toxic, because they were so normalized. People always said, relationships take work. So I guess I just thought that was what relationships were. Luckily I was wrong, because my partner now is the most genuine human I've ever met. But it's kinda funny and sad, because every once in a while I'll think, oh, so this is what it's supposed to be like. It's a bittersweet realization because although I'm happy to be where I am, it's a bummer that it took so long to get here because I ignored my instincts for so long in the first place. Ooh, this one is perfect for me. Because of the way my dad was, I wasn't fazed when my first boyfriend constantly ridiculed me for my passions and talents, even when it was in front of everyone. I also thought you had to explicitly say that you did not want to have sex if you were not in the mood that night before you drifted off. Otherwise your boyfriend could just stick it in from behind while you were asleep and you couldn't stop him or he'd get really mad. Oh, and I thought I was an asshole for wanting to use a condom when I had work not too much later on that day because I didn't want to walk around with a mess. I also had an IUD. He glared at me and said, "We're supposed to get married. If you're really immature enough to let something like that come between us, maybe you're not mature enough for sex." I think it's fair to say I was in a bad relationship. It wasn't until I was in my third relationship, second guy was worse, that I realized all of that was really, really bad. The trauma from that and other incidents in the relationship didn't really kick in until I had my realization, which is really weird. I grew up in a pretty strict Christian home and was taught that sex before marriage was a sin. My first teenage boyfriend and I were together for 5 years and never came anywhere close to having sex. At the time, I thought it was because I was a good Christian, since sex before marriage was wrong. I didn't want to have sex with him as all my friends were either having sex or struggling not to. I didn't understand this because I didn't have the desire to do wrong, just as I didn't have the desire to hurt people or lie or steal. He and I broke up as our lives went in different paths. My next relationship became sexual pretty quickly, and it was only then that I realized that I was never really attracted to my ex, which is why I didn't want to have sex with him this year. He had a birth defect which left him with 2 holes in the tip of his penis. I thought one was for pee and the other was for sperm this year. My next boyfriend was very confused when I asked him why he only had 1 hole. Edit. Thanks for all the medals. Wow. I'm also embarrassed by how many people have read this. And since there's too many comments to reply to, but I kept getting asked. My school's sex ed program was separated by gender, so I only learned female anatomy. Dicks aren't pretty, so I never went out of my way to look at one up close until I met my boyfriend. I see so much horrible things on here. Mine is quite tame, but here goes. My first boyfriend would always leave me small presents or notes underneath my pillow if I had to get up earlier than he did. He was quite romantic and told me "I love you" quite a lot. When I got a new boyfriend, I caught myself looking underneath my pillow for at least a month, 2 months in, just out of habit. She's supposed to be nice to you. Who would have thought?